The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
What a fantastic show we have today for our audience, Lewis. It is the first show of June, and of course we're giving away T-shirts because it is getting very, very hot with membership, davidpakman.com/summer13. I'm worried about the story I'm going to tell, and I'm worried I'm going to be accused of some kind of animal cruelty because of the way it all came together, but I really had only the best intentions. Over the weekend, it was pretty hot, and I decided to take my bike out, Lewis. Decided to do like about a 12, 13-mile ride, and I was getting close to the kind of halfway point, the turnaround point, okay? And I was kind of, just in the zone, biking, and all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see a squirrel run right next to the bike path that I was on. And I actually thought to myself, whoa, that was weird. That thing was moving so quick. If it ran out in front of me, like I wonder if I'd actually be able to avoid it. I really wouldn't want to run over a squirrel, and they just move so fast. I wonder if I'd be able to get out of the way of it if instead of moving away from the path, it went onto the path. Half mile later, I mean, this is just incredible that I actually thought of this. Half mile later, I'm coming up. I'm on the right side of the bike path, the way I should be, and I see a chipmunk kind of walk from the grass off the right side of the bike path and kind of start to drift onto the edge of the bike path. And as I start approaching, it continues drifting kind of into my path. So as I get closer, I say, okay, I either have to go off the bike path to the right to try to avoid it, but it came from that side. So thinking the animal's instinct might be to return to the side it came from, I decided I'm going to start veering off to the left and kind of into the middle of the bike path. And then it keeps coming out as I get closer, and I continue to move to the left to the point where I'm actually in the oncoming lane of the bike path. And at the last minute, I decide this thing's just getting in my way. I try to revert back to the right side, and I ran the thing over. I mean, I ran over a chipmunk, and it's just when you run. I've accidentally run over like a squirrel with my car. And you don't really feel it in the same way. But when you have your hands on those handlebars and you run over a chipmunk, you feel it. You know. And instantly I turned around and it was gone. So I don't want to say that I didn't kill it because it may have just run off in a shocked state. I'm hoping I ran over, I don't know, just some non-vital part of it or something. But I'm worried that I accidentally killed the chipmunk. A half mile after I said, I really hope I don't run anything over. I wonder if I'd have the reflexes to avoid it.
You probably killed it.
You think so?
Yeah.
You don't seem to care. You think this is funny, I know.
No, I don't think it's funny. It's just, there's nothing you can really do. When you're riding your bike, well, what can you do?
Yeah. I mean,
there's a chance that even if you do have incredible reflexes and turn to avoid it, well, what if it makes the decision to turn in the direction you're going?
Right.
There's just really nothing.
Which is exactly what happened.
Yeah,
it started drifting. And at the moment I tried to switch back, it tried to run back, and that was it. Later, I went a couple miles past that and came back past the same point. Mm-hmm. It still wasn't on the road, and it wasn't off to the side. So hopefully it survived.
You have to learn how to jump your bike.
Yeah, well, I don't really know how to do that. Anyway, it was a disturbing incident, and I hope it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
I learned this morning, as many of us did, the Democratic senator from New Jersey, Frank Lautenberg, has passed away. 89 years old, died in the middle of the night of viral pneumonia. And he had been struggling with health issues for some time. He missed about 6 weeks in the Senate when he was recovering, and he had already announced he wasn't going to seek re-election. So now New Jersey Republican Governor Chris Christie is going to fill the vacant Senate seat. This is going to be a serious test, Lewis, because we've seen displeasure with Chris Christie from the right because he is not right-wing enough. And at the same time, he is a Republican, so many Democrats aren't particularly thrilled with him. This is a Democratic senator he will be replacing. What do you think will happen? What do you think the implications will be?
Hard to say. I don't know much about the region and what's going on there politically.
Right.
So I'm not sure.
Frank Lautenberg served in the Army Signal Corps from 1942 to 1946. He studied at Columbia. Under the GI Bill. He also authored the landmark 1987 law, which banned smoking on airplanes. And he first retired from the Senate back in the year 2000, came back to the Capitol after Senator Bob Torricelli resigned, and has always been a strong leader on gun safety and gun violence prevention. So he will be missed.
How much you want to bet Christie just
appoints himself?
No, just to set himself up for his presidential run, appoints a Democrat?
Maybe so, but I don't know. Natan, would that be a good setup for a presidential run, or wouldn't it just hurt him in the primaries?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, it could help him if the way he's going to win a general election is by appealing to Democrats.
Yeah.
But obviously, he's going to lose a lot of Republican support. I mean, if he picks a Republican, hopefully he'll pick a moderate.
Yeah, no, that's true. And again, I think, do we all agree that no matter who he picks, either for being too conservative, too liberal, or too moderate and not representative of either party, both parties will not be that happy with it?
I'm sure that will be the case.
Or I guess if he picks a moderate, Democrats might be happy and Republicans won't be.
Well, happy in that it's better than a hardcore conservative.
Right.
But are they really going to be happy?
Yeah. Are they ever really happy?
No.
What is happiness?
Yeah.
Actually, we have a story about that coming up later on the show. I was looking, now that we are out of May 2013, I was looking at a bunch of the corporate news channel TV ratings for May, and they're really not good for MSNBC. They actually dropped behind Headline News. Now, Headline News had the Jodi Arias trial, which, of course, we talked a little bit about, Lewis. So that may be a reason why their ratings were up. But Rachel Maddow had the worst month on MSNBC since her show launched in 2008. Chris Hayes, who took over for Ed Schultz, his ratings just never seemed to get going, and they continue to be very, very low. Double-digit drops from the previous May, about 20 and 19% for MSNBC in a number of different demographics. I just don't know what's going to happen. I mean, the real question that I derive from this is, we know about Rachel Maddow. We know she's popular among liberals. Are teleprompter shows where you read off of a teleprompter going to do well long-term for liberals?
I don't know if they're going to do well long-term for anybody. I think people are slowly moving towards the shows that are just more entertaining.
That's the question that I have, because, and maybe that's what it is. And when you look at a show like Fox News' Hannity, which does well in the 9 o'clock time slot, it has the kind of teleprompter-based script, but it feels more, maybe because of the confrontations or whatever, it feels a little more engaging than the Rachel Maddow show, which, while I agree with 95% of the opinions on the show, I don't know that the presentation long-term is going to appeal and be good for the progressive point of view. What do you think, Natan?
I just think that there are sort of straight news shows where with a teleprompter, usually they read news, like the 6 o'clock news and whatnot. Right. And then there's the opinion shows that are hardly scripted.
Yeah.
Or you're not scripted very much, like, Crossfire used to be, shows like that. And, a lot of the shows on Fox, too.
Right.
And then this is sort of like an in-between thing where it's scripted, but it's half opinion, half fact.
Yeah.
And I just think that's losing appeal. People either want to watch the straight news, or they get the news from like the Daily Show or something like that, or they just want to see someone reinforce their own beliefs. So they want to watch a very biased sort of show, and in some cases they want to see fighting. And in those, and on MSNBC, there's hardly any fighting because almost everyone that appears is a liberal.
Yeah.
So I just think that it's sort of an in-between type of market that is losing appeal.
For those relying on MSNBC to be the big platform for progressive ideas that resonate and that go viral, etc., I don't know that we want to be putting all of our eggs in that basket. And if nothing else, this is just more information, more evidence that we need alternative media. MSNBC, a for-profit product that has chosen a more liberal point of view. Fox News, a for-profit product that has chosen a conservative point of view. We need non-corporate media. People should be subscribing to the David Pakman Show. That's really what we learned from these ratings, isn't it, Lewis?
Yeah, and I think a lot of younger people who grew up only watching things on the internet are going to continue to do that.
Right.
So, things are going to have to change.
No question. Change is coming, ladies and gentlemen. Big changes.
Yeah.
As our old high school audio-video teacher used to say when nobody would do any work every single day, big changes are necessary here. Absolutely, Lewis.
Right.
Scientists have created the first cloned human embryo. This is the same process that created Dolly the sheep back in 1996. And it's now been proven successful in humans. Scientists have made an embryonic clone of a person using DNA from the skin cells of a person. This could be a source of stem cells in the future for personalized therapies, all sorts of stuff, Lewis, that could come from one's own DNA. This is hugely exciting stuff.
Oh, yeah.
The religious right is not thrilled with this, as you can imagine.
I don't care.
It's unlikely that this clone could develop into a human, say scientists, and a team of biologists, it actually includes scientists from the U.S. and from Thailand. They're going to put together a paper explaining why not. Why couldn't this actually turn into a human? That will be interesting for sure. This has really been a long time coming. Remember when they had, we had the news from Woo Suk Wang of Seoul National University, who actually said he made human clones, and it actually turned out not to be true. Remember that whole scandal?
Yeah.
It was like 7-8 years ago. And now we actually see that it is the case. And the most interesting thing, I think, Lewis, about human cloning is that a lot of people still don't understand that even a clone would be very unlikely to end up being the same, quote, person, because certainly if it's a clone that is made from an adult, for sure, they're going to grow up years later. The nurture aspect of their upbringing will be completely different. The environment is different. And even physical appearance, which can often be influenced by a lot of those factors over 20, 30 years of development, would mean that it's not going to be the type of clone people might envision when they hear the word.
Right. I mean, perhaps, the original is a fitness guru, and the clone is someone who just can't stop eating Twinkies.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. That certainly could be the case. So we will continue to follow that. There will be a lot of interesting developments in the next 5 years. There will be a lot of interesting fights and pushbacks to this over the next 5 years. No question about it.
But we are excited about it.
Book recommendation made possible by A Fashion of Bastards by Joanna Louise Johnson, which according to the Culture Buzz is absolutely irresistible, even though it begs the all-too-serious question, when does high-level self-serving manipulation reach the tipping point of permanent harm to our planet? Find it on Amazon.com. This recommendation I'm going to make today is going to be very, very different from anything I've recommended. Typically, it's fiction. Sometimes it's nonfiction. This is a totally different thing. This is the book, The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. Benjamin Graham, for people who don't know, was a British-born American economist and a professional investor, and he's kind of the first proponent of what's called value investing, which he started teaching at Columbia Business School in the 1920s. And this is a book I read years ago. I think it's important to read this book for a couple of reasons. Number one, for people who are very disillusioned by what we now see in the stock market, Wall Street, in investments, derivative trading of this kind of short-term trading with big financial companies skimming off the top with every transaction, Benjamin Graham really proposed something totally different, which is you invest for the long term and you invest in as broad a market as you can. Can you invest in the entire American stock market? Do that. Can you invest in the entire world stock market? Do that. And Warren Buffett, who I think over the last few years has been putting out a lot of interesting stuff related to investing in markets and business, says that this is the best investment book ever written. And it'll really give you a sense of an alternative way to think of investing and of markets that would be highly, highly refreshing given what's going on today on Wall Street.
Well, I would say that this is the best recommendation ever on the best book ever for investing.
There you go.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm interested to see what the reaction is. This is a book, I actually forget it's been reprinted a number of times. I think the book was originally written in the 40s, but I could be wrong about that. I don't have it in front of me. Highly recommend it, The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. We will take a break. Of course, the free t-shirts with membership happening, davidpakman.com/summer13. We will take a break and be back with plenty more right after this. Stay with us.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Welcome back to the show. If you do any shopping on Amazon.com, consider first going to our website, davidpakman.com, and clicking on the link to Amazon on the right side of the website. If you first click that and then do your shopping, Amazon sends us back 7% of your purchase. Doesn't cost you an extra penny. You can also become a David Pakman Show member, made possible in part by liberalbias.com. If you're concerned about the amount of liberal bias in the world, you need to see the Liberal Bias Index, which is an objective measure, Lewis, of the liberal bias threat level at liberalbias.com. Today's new member of the day is James Varnum. James, thank you for being a David Pakman Show member. Could not do it without you.
Very good.
Here's a really, really weird video. There's this show called Daystar, and the host is Joni Lamb, and she hosted a special on homosexuality. And this week, we'll have different clips about it. And I want to start with one of the most incredible ones, which is she brought on these ex-gay activists, and one of them is Dr. Jerry Mungadzi from Zimbabwe. And he says that his ex-gay therapy techniques actually can change the brain structure of gay people and eliminate all evidence that the person was ever even gay. In other words, not only does it make you... we all know that these therapies can easily turn gay people straight, but usually when you do a brain scan, you can still see evidence that they were once gay. Dr. Jerry Mungadzi can remove all evidence they ever were gay.
What about their memories?
Yeah, maybe they don't even remember being gay. Let's see if he explains it in this clip.
Good news is, at least the people that I've seen, not a lot of people.
Yeah.
When the healing takes place, those areas of the brain that were showing the homosexuality show heterosexuality. I have had several people who, when I looked at them, I couldn't tell the difference between a heterosexual who never was homosexual and them. Which means the brain is able to go back and fire the way it's supposed to be.
Look at the guy on the left
which
nodding.
is an argument against the whole idea of someone was born that way.
Right. Wow. What do you make of that, Lewis? I trust this guy. He seems really trustworthy to me.
I can't tell if he actually believes this, because normally I just think this is a cash grab.
Right, of course. Well, it's funny you mentioned that. Our friend Wayne Besson over at Truth Wins Out wrote up an article about this guy, and he says, a Texas clown doctor. It's already funny. Originally from Zimbabwe, named Dr. Jerry Mungadzi, uses a bizarre method he's dubbed right brain therapy. Here's a bit more on the pseudoscientific technique. Like all such crackpot doctors, his education is heavy on scripture and light on science. He was selected for a scholarship here in the U.S. He received a BS. There's a lot of BS. I would say that's the right title for him. He received a BS in Bible from Dallas Bible College in Dallas, Texas, an MA in Biblical Studies from Dallas Theological Seminary, and a PhD in counselor education with a minor in psychology from University of North Texas. Do you think this guy is trustworthy? I mean, he does require full payment at the time of service, which is always inspiring. It always inspires confidence.
It sounds like he just likes two things: money and being around gay people.
All we really know about him is he is around a lot of gay people, and he requires full payment up front. But hey, if he can't find evidence of homosexuality in his cured patients, who are we to judge?
Amazing stuff.
A biologist says, this is going to cause some controversy, that religious fundamentalism could be mental illness. For a long time on this show, we've been saying that the line between fundamentalist religious beliefs and schizophrenic or otherwise disturbed mental illness type beliefs is a pretty blurry line. And now an Oxford University researcher named Kathleen Taylor says that one day religious fundamentalism may be considered and treated as a curable mental illness. You surprised? What's your reaction? Is this offensive to you, Lewis?
No, I just don't know if I would agree with that. It seems that if you're born and something is drilled into your brain from day one,
right?
Believing that wholeheartedly may not necessarily be mental illness.
Well, let's explore what she says further. One of the surprises may be to see people with certain beliefs as people who can be treated. Someone who has, for example, become radicalized to a cult ideology, we might stop seeing that as a personal choice that they've chosen out of pure free will and may start treating it as a sort of mental disturbance. In many ways, it could be a very positive thing because there are no doubt beliefs in our society that do a heck of a lot of damage. And she says she's not referring just to obvious candidates like radical Islam, but she's also including, for example, Christian beliefs that beating children is something that God has indicated they should do. We've talked about a lot of those stories, that all of that could be forms of a mental disturbance that could be treated. And I would go even further. I would say, what about the beliefs that repress people's ability to grow, to be creative, to limit their kind of freedoms, or to make them want to limit other people's freedoms based on these beliefs? What do you think, Natan, about this analysis?
Well, I find the potential applications of this pretty distressing because you can then foresee a time where the government will determine that someone who is against the government and says certain things about it, including some people that we think are ridiculous, like Alex Jones and other people,
right, and
then say that we need to treat them in some cases against their will. So I'm kind of concerned about the idea of medicalizing all of these beliefs. I understand the idea that we're not talking about simple religious people. We're talking about fundamentalism.
Right.
But I think when you apply it to other types of beliefs, I don't think we'll be so hot to think about the consequences.
Yeah, I'm sure there are some cases in which schizophrenia manifests itself in the form of radical religious beliefs.
Yeah.
But in other cases, I think it really is just stupidity and/or indoctrination. And like Natan says, this could go in many different directions.
The argument that it's just the way kids are indoctrinated and brought up, couldn't we argue that a lot of commonly accepted mental illness, like, for example, deep depression or schizophrenia, these types of things, while they may have a biological component, that severe trauma in upbringing can certainly bring out those conditions? Wouldn't this be along those same lines?
Maybe, I don't know.
There is some irony to the fact that for a long time fundamentalists have been saying it's gay people that are actually mentally ill, and now not only have we confirmed that gay people aren't mentally ill, we might actually be finding some information there's some theories that it's those fundamentalist beliefs that might be a sign of mental disturbance. There's something ironic there, I think.
I know.
The Better Life Index rates the 36 OECD countries in 11 different areas, which cover a number of different areas of life, including income, education, health, work-life balance, satisfaction, etc. And the U.S. is not in the top 10 happiest countries in the world. Let's put the list up if we can. Switzerland, Norway, Iceland, Sweden, Denmark, Netherlands, Austria, Canada, Finland, and Mexico. Mexico, where our upcoming guest a little later today, Jesse Ventura, spent a lot of time every year. This is very, very interesting because it looks at not only income and all of those kind of obvious things, but it also looks at things like what services, what things does the government provide as kind of just basic rights to everybody who lives there, and a lot of other things. And what's clear is 7 of these 10 countries, there's a better than average proportion of residents reporting good health, and that includes Canada, where 88% of respondents report being in good or better health, compared to the average of 69%. And that is directly connected to governments that have what, Lewis?
National health care.
Exactly. Another factor that a lot of these happy countries have in common is that the government tends to provide a lot of benefits, right? I mean, 5 of the countries, Sweden, Denmark, Austria, spend more than the U.S. as a portion of GDP than does the U.S. On residents, they spend more than the U.S. on social services.
Right.
And again, they're not doing poorly in terms of their economy. Also, lastly, income inequality lower in most of these countries than in the U.S.
Right.
No surprises at all. But this continues to be this battle that we hear from the right. The right is so resistant to admit any of these obvious realities that we see in so many countries. Same old canards. Well, that's different. Things that work in certain countries wouldn't work in ours. Perfectly honest and legitimate argument, but look at the broad range of size and types and location of these countries where it does seem to be working. We've got to wake up to this.
Unfortunately, those arguments are not backed by any actual data.
Right. That's absolutely right. I'm actually I'm going to be I'm going to spend a little time in Switzerland in July, which is the number one country here. I'm curious. Do you notice the people being really happy? You've been to Switzerland, right?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
I thought you were.
Nope.
I went to Switzerland, Dave.
Oh, okay.
I actually was in the city that Dave will be visiting in Switzerland.
And were people happy?
Well, you should remember that the part of Switzerland that Dave will be going to is the Italian part in the south, which compared to most other places in the world is very wealthy and well off, but compared to the rest of Switzerland is not as well off. Having said that, I noticed nothing in particular about the people compared to Americans. I think a lot of people in Italy and Italian Switzerland are happy in certain ways and unhappy in others.
All right, there we go. There's the latest from Natan. I will hope to bring some personal anecdotes back with me in a couple of months.
You kind of have to.
Yeah, I have no question about it.
Yeah.
Facebook.com/David Pakman Show. Also check out davidpakman.com/summer13. Summer 13 gets you a free David Pakman Show t-shirt made from recycled materials with your membership. It's a great deal. Check it out. Jesse Ventura is next. Stay with us.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Joining us once again is former Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura. The paperback of the best-selling book, Democrips and Republicans, No More Gangs in Government, is now available. Also, October 1st, the new book, They Killed Our President, 63 Facts That Prove a Conspiracy to Kill JFK. Governor, pleasure as always to talk to you.
Thanks, David. Always my pleasure.
I can't think of a better time to talk to you about conspiracies and conspiracy theories, two issues which you're very much associated with, the TV show, of course, and the books, than right now when we have allegations from some that the AP Department of Justice situation, the Benghazi situation, and the IRS situation are all planned and that President Obama personally was involved. So I want to get your take. What do you think about all of the theories surrounding these three issues?
Well, David, unfortunately, we're in a lot of trouble right now because I just returned from Mexico about 10 or 12 days ago.
Yeah.
And I did not watch TV from January 2nd until I returned.
Sandy Hook, you mentioned that, the Connecticut shooting, and Boston Marathon bombing. A lot of conspiracies around those two. What's your thought on those, or have you not taken a position?
I haven't taken a position, but I will take a position on the Second Amendment.
Okay.
People need to understand the Second Amendment was put there so that we, the citizens, would have the ability to fight our government if our government became oppressive. It is not there for hunting and fishing. And for those that say we could never stand up to our government, excuse me, start reading your history books. There was a little country in Southeast Asia that we dropped more ordnance on than we did World War II. I'm speaking, of course, of Vietnam.
Right.
They had no Navy. They had no Air Force. All they were a bunch of rice farmers with a few AK-47s. And we threw everything we had at them. And we could not defeat them, could we?
Yeah, but Governor, I think we have to
Now,
consider
wait a
there.
minute.
Governor, I think we do have to consider
Let me
there.
add to this that the last 6 or 7 genocides in the last century have all occurred in countries where they ban citizen ownership of guns. So when they assault, I was in the Philippines the day Ferdinand Marcos, physically there, the day Ferdinand Marcos declared martial law and became the dictator. The first thing he did was he gave the Philippine people 10 to 14 days to turn in all their guns or it was the death penalty. Now, why would a dictator make that his first and foremost objective?
But I understand that, Governor, but realistically speaking, in the U.S., Do you believe that Americans should have the rights to own all of the same weapons that the government does?
Well, of course you can't own a nuclear weapon.
Okay, but
Americans don't own the same
shoulder-mounted
weapons, but wait a minute.
RPGs or Apache
Americans
helicopters?
don't own the same weapons. The assault weapons sold to the you have to have a license to own full automatic.
Right.
The assault weapons sold are semi-automatic. They shoot just like a deer rifle, only they use a smaller round, and they don't have a telescopic sight usually. But the point is that you cannot own an automatic weapon unless you are federally licensed to do so.
Okay, but so Governor, do you believe individuals should be able to own shoulder-mounted RPGs, civilians?
That's a rocket. That's not a gun. That's not a handgun.
Okay, so given that, I'm hearing then that
I'm talking about firearms.
Okay, fair enough, Governor.
I'm
so
not
in
talking
that case,
about army tanks. I'm not talking about.
So therefore,
okay, all right. Well, shouldn't we start doing background checks then on people that buy manure because you can make bombs out of them?
But the question I'm really getting to, Governor, is in the context of this kind of fighting back against the government. If you are limiting individual civilians simply to what you have now described as firearms, it doesn't really stand to reason that those would be effective against Apache helicopters, tanks, so on and so forth, does it?
Well, it did in Vietnam.
But it's a very different situation there, Governor. And the other difference there also is that...
It's people. No, it isn't. It's people fighting to be free. It's people fighting to be self-governed, to govern themselves. That's what the Vietnam people were fighting over.
Yeah, but Governor, you also have to consider...
Country. What's that?
I think you have to consider also when it comes to Vietnam that the strategy from the Vietnamese was simply to get as many American casualties as possible, knowing that the U.S. had a limit to the number of people they were willing to lose. So it would be a very different situation to say that those weapons are going to keep the American government from becoming tyrannical against its own people. I just don't see the connection.
Really? Well, then why is it that these genocides happen in countries where the government genocides their people and kills them in masses? They always happen in countries where guns are outlawed.
But Governor, you're cherry picking that bit of data.
Okay, this is good discussion. Let's go back to World War II.
I absolutely have to get in just a couple of audience questions that we had.
Fine.
Carly wrote into me, and he said he wants to know, why does Jesse Ventura lend Alex Jones legitimacy by appearing on his show and so on and so forth, yet we've seen so many revelations of truth contrary to the things Alex Jones says. For example, his broadcast right before the new millennium, December 31st, 1999, was talking about world chaos and all sorts of stuff that just flat out didn't happen, and that there's many other predictions. And the question from Carly is, you're a respected elected official. Why are you lending your name to someone like Alex Jones who's been wrong so many times?
Well, because Alex Jones has also been right on a lot of things, too. And you need to remember, I did a show called Conspiracy Theory on TV.
I remember it.
It's called entertainment.
Yeah.
You know? And
so you think Alex Jones is entertaining, but you don't necessarily think that it's good journalism.
These people need to understand, too, that our media, our news media today is nothing but entertainment. It's all about entertainment. It's all corporate run. It's all based upon the dollar, and it's based upon listenership.
But how does that tie into you giving legitimacy to Alex
is
Jones?
Sadly mistaken, because it's all. That's what runs the whole world, is the almighty dollar.
But so how does this tie into Alex Jones, Governor?
Well, Alex, I don't know. You tell me. Why am I discredited? Because I do his show. I've also done other shows. I've done Hannity's show. I've done CNN, too. Those are entertainment shows.
Right. So you consider, so Governor, you're saying...
the point is, I can't pick and choose.
No, I get that.
When I do a book tour like this,
totally,
I don't pick and choose who I'm going on with.
So what you're saying...
with whoever will have me on.
I don't want to misquote you, but you're saying that you see Alex Jones as another entertainment show.
All shows are entertainment.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. All right.
If
and
they're
then
not, because all shows are out to get listeners. Come on.
And then other question I got from Corey. He says he wants to know if you're going to do another season of The Conspiracy Show.
No, we're not. True TV did not renew us for another season. We did 3 seasons of 8 shows. 23 out of the 24 aired. The one on the TSA they wouldn't put on the air.
Huh. Interesting. All right. Well, I want to remind people the books. We have the paperback of Democrips and Rebloodlicans, No More Gangs in Government. Also, you have the new book coming out October 1st, They Killed Our President, 63 Facts That Prove a Conspiracy to Kill JFK. I predict the book will do very well. Governor, pleasure as always having you on.
Thank you, David. And again, to your listeners who are concerned about Alex Jones and all that, hey, Alex may be right about many things. He may be wrong about things, but he at least makes you think a little bit and opens up your eyes. And what, someone out there is going to tell me the government's never lied to me? All the government does is lie to me.
Certainly, the Alex Jones has been wrong and the government has been wrong. I think that's a good kind of final point to put on the discussion.
There you go.
Governor.
All right. Thanks. We'll talk again, David.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome back to the show, and hi to everyone who's watching from the We Survive Bush, You Will Survive Obama Facebook page. Check that out. I've got some incredible numbers to tell you about. If the United States cut military spending by 75%, it would still have the largest military in the world. If you look at the numbers where the U.S. spends about $682 billion on the military, in second place is China with $166 billion, Russia, $91 billion, the United Kingdom, $61 billion, Japan, $59 billion, France, $58 billion, Saudi Arabia, $57 billion. A 75% cut for the U.S. would still have the U.S. with the biggest military spending. Now, if you say, well, hold on a second, David, we need to have, because we have so many enemies and so many people would want to take our freedom, we need to have the biggest military, not by a little bit, we need to have the biggest military by kind of a lot. I'd say, okay, you could cut 50% and still have a bigger military than the next 3 countries combined. So we could chop it in half, Lewis. Take half the military budget, put it to other things, solve countless problems in this country. We would still have a bigger military than China, Russia, and the UK combined. And we would still probably be pretty safe, wouldn't we?
Yeah, in reality, you don't really need a military. All you need is the most powerful weapons.
Let's say we want to be even more conservative, though. Let's cut a third of the military. We cut only a third of the military, and we would still have a bigger military than the next 6 countries combined. That seems like we'd still be pretty safe. Do you realize how much money we would be saving if we cut a third of the military?
Yes, I do.
You do. Mm-hmm. All right. This is not the future. The direction we're going, and by the way, let's add, all defense spending to this, and then we've got just staggering numbers. This paradigm, Natan, where this is the relationship in terms of military spending between the U.S. and other countries, I can't imagine this will continue indefinitely.
You would think not. I mean, you have to also remember that since 9/11, we've doubled the military budget. So even at that point, it was already a lot larger than all other countries. But what did we spend the money on? I mean, we spent most of this money on 2 wars, one of which went on much longer than it should have and had sort of misplaced priorities, and the other one of which was completely illegitimate.
Yeah.
So I think what we need to do is not only look at the military spending, but also what we're doing with the military. The money could be spent even for military reasons in much more intelligent ways, in addition to lowering the budget.
Do you think, Lewis, that those who say we need this size military, right? If you had to say what's the prevailing actual deep down opinion amongst lawmakers and those in the military, everybody involved, do you think that the idea that we really need this size military to be safe is like the true, honest, conventional wisdom? Or is it that people realize that we have so many business interests tied up in the military industrial complex that this is what we want, and we'd be just as safe saving 30-40%?
I think a lot of our own lawmakers are probably blind to how big and how much the military is and how much we're spending on defense.
Really?
Yeah, I do. And I think a lot of them think that what we have in place right now is exactly what we need because we haven't been attacked, right? I think certainly there are some politicians out there who are heavily influenced by the military-industrial complex as
Certainly.
well.
And lobbyists.
Yeah. I think it goes both ways.
Well, just remember, ladies and gentlemen, we could cut 75% of the military budget, still have the biggest military in the world. Good to have some data, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Remember last week when I read that letter from the gay teen who wrote to me saying he's depressed, only his one friend knows that he is gay, his parents are conservative, he just wanted some advice. Well, I gave him a little bit of, just my completely amateur thoughts, and a bunch of people reached out to me. I passed along a lot of information and different groups that would be useful to him, and he actually wrote me back. A lot of people were asking what was the follow-up, and he wrote me back. He said, I listened to your response to my letter. Do I have it on paper here? Yes, I do. I listened to your response to my letter, and this time the tears I cried were joyful rather than sad. I cannot thank you enough for your support. Your ideas and response have actually improved my attitude on my future. Most of the YouTube comments were helpful too. That's a shocker. YouTube comments are rarely helpful for anything.
Right.
He goes on and he says, I will definitely look into talking to the people you said offered to talk to me. Thanks for all the support. At this point, I have my one friend, my safety rope to fall back on. Before I come out, I've decided to, one day at least, I need to make a safety net that's more than just one rope. This is my new beginning, my weaving, my safety net. I feel better about my situation every day. I feel like this could be the turning point in my life. That's fantastic. And I have nothing else to add. I'm glad that from a completely amateur perspective and not someone who has ever had to go through what they are going through, I was able to provide at least something that was a reinforcement that it's going to get better, that he's already on the right path by knowing that suicide is not a solution. And I'm happy with that.
Well, believe it or not, David, there are some people out there who think that you have a level head on your shoulders.
There you go. They're few and far between, but they do exist. Yeah. Let's go to your voicemail. Our voicemail line is open 24 hours a day. The phone number is 219-2-DAVID-P. Here's a voicemail in response to Michelle Bachmann not running for re-election. Take a listen.
Hey, David, Louis, Nathan. This is Danny from Tampa. I just finished listening to yesterday's show, Wednesday show. I gotta agree with about the Pakman issue that she's not running again. I gotta agree with Louis, but also I want to add, I really would not be surprised if in a few months we'll find out that probably her husband is tired of her and he's really just gonna come out, and it's gonna be worse if she's still in government.
Right.
But also, let's just, personally I'm an atheist, but praise the Lord, she's finally, for whatever reason, decided that she's really going to get out of Congress. Then again, I'm also scared to think, what is her next plan?
Yeah, so there's a lot of questions here. Maybe that's the way to look at it. No matter why she is getting out, it doesn't even matter, was she going to lose the election? Was she not going to lose? Is it because Marcus Bachmann is gay or whatever the case may be? We should just be glad she's getting out, right?
The world is at least going to be a better place, at least a little bit because of that.
Could she do more damage outside of government than in it, though?
Palin seemed to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, and here's one other voicemail. Again, an example of how not to leave a voicemail. I've not identified whether this is a cell phone signal problem or what. I can't understand what's going on here except for one or two words.
Hey, David. Do you think that it's right to support LGBT rights and be a Christian? So obviously you can't be either. But, I mean, I think that it would be okay if somebody supported that and we're a Christian at the same time. Obviously you can't be it. That's like saying people with tattoos can't be a Christian. So I'll have to see your opinion on that.
Louis,
I heard something about tattoos and being a Christian.
can you explain how that happens? Is it the person not talking properly? Is it a cell phone issue? I just don't understand. How is a voicemail like that left?
I don't know. Make sure that you have a solid connection, that your service, you have all your bars, and speak loudly. That's all I can say.
Yeah, we've got to get that figured out because I feel like somewhere in there, Natan, there was a good question.
I'm not sure about that.
Okay, thank you very much. That's going to do it for today. I want to remind you, Lewis, davidpakman.com/summer13. You get a 1-year membership. We send you a free t-shirt if you live in the U.S. We also ship it to you for free. Fantastic deal. Support non-corporate, independent media, or all we'll have left is talking points on 3-letter news networks.
Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.